Hey, welcome to the April 15th, 2026 Environmental Quality Commission meeting. This is an in-person and virtual meeting with Environmental Quality Commission members, city staff, and members of the public. We'll move to roll call. Now I'd like to introduce staff and EQC members present. In the room, we have Chair McKenna, Commissioners Angel, Headley, Hernandez, and Hill. And Commissioner Kissel is joining virtually using provisions from the Brown Act. Staff present is Sustainability Manager Rachel Launder and Management Analyst 2 Liz Tapia. Ms. Launder, would you please provide instructions to the Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Sure. Thank you, Chair McKenna. At this time, I'd like to share our process for public comment. If you're in the room, we have public comment cards over there in that teal box. And you can grab one and return it to me for any of the items on our agenda. If you're calling in via phone, you press *9. And if you're joining by Zoom, you can hit the raise hand button, which is either at the bottom of your screen or to the right of your name, depending on your device. And I will be able to unmute you. Typically, we have 3 minutes for public comment. And at the top of the meeting, we can make public comment for items not on the agenda. And then for public comment related to agenda items, please wait for those to come up. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we will move on to item C, public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. You are not required to provide your name or city of residence, but it is helpful. The Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the Commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Sustainability Manager Launder, can you please call for public comment?
Absolutely. If you'd like to make public comment on an item not on the agenda, you can grab a public comment card or return it to me. If you are online, you can press the raise hand button, and if you're calling in, you can press *9. We do have one public comment in the room, so we can start with water treatment, and I'll pull up our timer. But you're welcome to get started when you're ready, Mr. Schmidt.
Okay, thanks. Excuse me, Brian Schmidt, Menlo Park. I just wanted to mention I've been tracking both Peninsula Clean Energy and Valley Clean Energy meetings online. Great way to get caught up in various things that you're doing. And one thing that came up recently is AEA is sponsoring kind of a Northern California counterpart to the home upgrade program that Menlo Park and PCE has. And a significant amount is going to be spent on multifamily housing. And they do have a way of figuring out how to reach low income recipients in that. They have a criteria which says if 2/3 of the people occupying the building are low income by whatever standards you use, that building is eligible for this type of upgrades. So I thought that was a really interesting approach, and one that we might want to consider in the future for future home upgrade programs. We try and reach the multifamily housing components of Menlo Park. And that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. Seeing no hands online or cards in the room, we can close public comment for items not on the agenda and return the meeting to Chair.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to item D, regular business. Item D1 is to recognize outgoing commissioners. We wanted to just recognize Eduardo and Nancy, although Eduardo, I imagine, I understand you applied to stay on the commission. But to Nancy, I just wanted to thank you for your years of service to the city and the community, including your leadership roles as vice chair and chair. I always appreciate your thoughtful approach to this work as a commissioner. You brought a spiritual and even an indigenous people's perspective to the conversations. I wanted to highlight your subcommittee work on plastics and vehicle miles traveled and food systems, among others, and your early efforts to educate the community on the city's climate action plan. And Eduardo, just in case, I wanted to thank you for your work and commitment to sustainability. for leading by example by, as you say, not eating animals. I appreciate your representation of District 1 and being a voice and protector for that community. And I appreciate you sharing your personal experiences as a way for all of us to learn and grow and enhance our work. And so mostly to Nancy, because I'm sure you'll be back, but I just want to wish you the best going forward. I imagine like past commissioners, your work will continue to be incredibly meaningful to promote sustainability and climate action in our community. And you'll be able to do so with fewer Brown Act restrictions. So again, yeah, thank you both for everything you do. And with that,
Clarifying question.
yes. we can-
Clarifying comments.
That'll
We'll
be after
do
public comment.
clarifying questions, we'll take public comment, and then we can open it up for other comments from other commissioners. Are there any clarifying questions? Okay, didn't think so. Flounder, do we have any public comment on this item?
And we can make a public comment call for item D1 at recognizing the outgoing commissioners. If you're in the room and you have a public comment card, please return it to me. If you're online, you can press the raise hand button. And if you're calling in, you can press *9. Seeing no cards in the room or hands online, we can close public comment on item D1 and return the meeting to you.
Okay, we can open it up for other comments or discussion from other commissioners. No,
I have been so inspired by Nancy's leadership and participation on the commission, particularly with the heritage tree ordinance. And I think that the subtleties and importance of that ordinance really became clear to me through working with you and with Jeff. But even more, I love how I'm appreciating how you have facilitated our conversations to come to a conclusion and come to an agreement and to abide by Brown Act in ways that have really felt just positive. And I'm constantly writing down, oh, I should say, oh, that's a great way of putting that. So thank you very much for all that, plus your just positive presence.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really been a joy for me to serve on the commission. I was reflecting on it, and the phrase that came to me was, it has been an honor to be a part of this local leadership ecosystem, including Menlo Spark, 350, this group. There's so many amazing climate leaders in our community, and I'm looking forward to being a EQC emeritus. Yeah.
May I?
sure.
It's Nancy's birthday today too.
It's true.
And so I think that really
Yeah, that could be-
demonstrates Nancy's
How did that
commitment to
possibly
show
be
up.
true?
Yeah.
Well, my last EQC meeting, can't miss it, even though there's a birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
How are you celebrating?
By being here and saving the planet with all of you.
Excellent.
Important things.
Indeed.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy and Eduardo also, but as already stated, I'm hoping you're going to be back. Yeah, it's been really, really amazing to work with you in a short period of time. And I feel like, wait, I'm just getting to, we did such good work together on the food systems, all three of us. And yeah, so I know I'm gonna see you around and work with you probably in other ways. So I'm not goodbye, but I will miss you on this commission. Thank you for all your. Thank you.
Great.
Eduardo, you're not going anywhere.
Okay, anything else? Again, thank you, both of you. Yeah, much appreciation. Okay, we'll move on to item D2. Approve the March 18, 2026 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes. Do we have any clarifying questions from the commission on this?
One little thing that Corey was not listed on the staff is present.
Oh, interesting. We can fix that.
And I wasn't sure that Liz was there. Maybe she was online.
No, it was Ori.
It's not, yeah.
Ori prepared the minutes too, so.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. He prepared the minutes and left himself
I know,
off.
so I'm like, why did he do that?
Name at the end, but not.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other? Okay. And, thank you. Sustainability Manager Lunder, can we open it to public comment?
Absolutely. I am opening up public comment for item D2, approve the March 18th, 2026 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes. I don't see any cards in the room, but if you're online, you can press the raise hand button, and if you're calling in, you can press *9. No hands online, so we can close public comment on item D2.
Great, then, so we can open it up for discussion and a motion.
I move to approve the minutes.
We have a motion by Commissioner Headley and a second by Commissioner Hernandez to approve the March 18th, 2026 Environmental Quality Commission meeting minutes with the edit of adding Oripause as staff present
And removing Liz, or,
and removing Liz. Okay. We'll take roll call vote since we do have a commissioner absent. So I'll start with Chair McKenna,
aye,
Commissioner Angel,
Hi.
Commissioner Hill. Aye. Commissioner Headley.
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Aye.
Commissioner Kissel.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Meyer absent. The motion passes with 6 in favor and 1 absent. Thank you.
we will now move on to item D3, update on local hazard mitigation plan. Brandon Bond, the city's emergency preparedness coordinator, will be making the presentation for this item.
I'm gonna move down here so I can be seen on the screen. So thanks for having me. My first time speaking with EQC, so I'm excited to be here. This is, I've been with the city for 2 years. The local hazard mitigation plan is a process that happens every 5 years. So this is my first time doing this methodology. I did the threat hazard identification risk reduction with the THIRA with Palo Alto, and then all my other mitigation hazard mobility stuff has been in healthcare. So this is, we're all learning this time around, especially because the way the process is being done this year is vastly different than the way it was done 5 years ago. So it's a very big project. But why does it matter? We are required to have a approved local hazard mitigation plan that is approved by State Office of Emergency Services and the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which then makes us eligible for public assistance grant funding after a disaster. Okay, so public assistance funding, there's 2 different lines of funding post-disaster from FEMA. One is individual assistance, which goes to help the victims. And sadly, and the research that I've done, the average payout from FEMA is about $4,500. That's over the last 7 years of disasters. And then public assistance is the money to go rebuild public infrastructure. So any of our buildings or infrastructure that gets damaged gets funding through that process. We can't get any of that. We can't apply for any of that unless we have an approved local hazard mitigation plan. Next slide. If you have questions while I'm going, please let me know. So there's 4 processes in emergency management: mitigation, planning, response, and recovery. Response is actually the easiest one, and especially in California, we're very good at putting the wet stuff on the red stuff. You know, the big one that will crush us will be any catastrophic earthquake. That's going to be a much longer response. Recovery is what takes months to years and is the most difficult part of any disaster. But mitigation is the opportunity for us ahead of time to identify projects, plans, education that can have long-term solutions to reduce the impact of future disasters. So when we think about kind of the tie-in to environmental quality and why I'm presenting here tonight, a little over 60% of our mitigation strategies come out of the work that you have been doing, okay, which is significant, right? It's also important that, and I think you all know this way better than I do, but there's no doubt that climate change is impacting the magnitude of disasters throughout the world. Just a little anecdote on myself. So my very first major disaster response outside of California wildfires was in 2005 Hurricane Katrina. When Hurricane Katrina made landfall, it was a Category 3 storm, and it was the biggest and baddest hurricane in history, in record. 2017, I was deployed to Puerto Rico ahead of Hurricane Irma. That was a Category 5 storm. And then 9 days later, we were sheltering in place for Hurricane Maria, another Category 5 storm. And during that hurricane season, there was one period where there was 5 active hurricanes in the Gulf, which just is all fueled by rising sea temperatures. So that's why we need to do mitigation, because disasters aren't going to get less. They're not going to get easier. They're just going to get more. Okay. So here in San Mateo County, obviously earthquake, that is our #1 risk. And it's fascinating, and this stands true since I've been in the Bay Area, which is now 26 years. When I go and speak to staff and organizations, even groups of emergency planners, and I say, how many of you have an earthquake preparedness kit? How many of you have an earthquake preparedness kit? Okay, a little over half of the room. That's pretty good, okay? But that's not consistent, right? And I think you're involved with NPC Ready, so you're up a notch, yeah. So the challenge for us with earthquake is it's a no-notice event. We don't get to sit and watch the weather for 10 days and start making pre-plans to prepare for this earthquake to move people out, etc. So that's a very difficult one for us. Drought, when you think about drought, what does drought lead to? Worse wildfires. But then there's other studies that talk about drought and access to water and agriculture, and there's a ton of cascading effects. Landslide for the county is a much higher hazard than it is for the city of Menlo Park. We have a little bit of risk on the San Francisco Creek, but not the major landslides like Devil's Slide, which if you haven't driven from Pacifica to Half Moon Bay, the new Devil's Slide bypass tunnel is amazing. Yeah, and we saw a lot of purposes. So obviously wildfire, we all experienced the CZU wildfire several years ago. Tsunami for the county is a high threat because of coastside. The way the bay is in terms of geography, tsunami is not a threat to the city of Menlo Park. Sea level rise, it is. In fact, this year, so the training site for Menlo Park Fire District for the technical rescue training is behind the PG&E substation at the base of the Dunbarton Bridge. And we, during one of our storm weekends, we went out there to train, get there at 9 a.m. And by noon, when we were done, we were flooded in because the frontage roads completely flooded. And we had to figure out how to get everybody out. So we've seen that. I know if there's a king tide and large rains, that frontage road is going to flood. Last year, there was concerns that the PG&E substation would be at risk. And then that's going to knock out power to 400,000 people on the peninsula. So that's why the One Shoreline project and the seawall is so critically important. That's an example of a mitigation effort. We are at risk of the Searsville Dam that would inundate the San Francisco Creek and again cause flooding. So those are kind of the major things that we're concerned about. Next slide. So some examples of mitigation projects that we've done here in the city of Menlo Park. So the Chrysler pump station down on Bayfront and Chrysler, it's almost completed. It's taking us from being able to handle a 10-year flood to a 100-year flood base. And it's 3 gigantic new pumps that have the ability to discharge water from a 100-year flood. It's beautiful. I can't wait for it to come online. We now have an emergency well and storage tank that is at the courtyard. It holds 1,500 gallons per minute in terms of ability to pump. There's a fire hydrant that's actually tied to the emergency system. And then there's disinfectant so it can create clean water. But one of the things that I'm planning to add to our disaster cache is an actual distribution capability so people can come up, fill their water jugs and take them back to their house, because water is always a major issue. And if you look at the statistics around how long we will be without water after a Hayward fault, or even San Andreas, we're not talking days, we're talking weeks, even months. When I got to Asheville, North Carolina in 2004 after Hurricane Helene, the initial predictions from the Army Corps of Engineers was going to take 8 weeks to restore water. They were hauling in by the tanker trucks every day 500,000 gallons of water just to keep the hospital running. And that was just the infrastructure, not actual drinking water. So water is always a major, major challenge for us. So that's a great example of a mitigation project. So what's next? Next month is going to be the public outreach period. Each city has an annex of the local hazard mitigation plan for the county that lays out exactly what the city is planning on doing. So we're in the process of filing that document. It'll be done by the 24th. And then next month, we'll go into the public comment where people can submit basically on these 3 things. So what hazards you experienced in your community, and what hazards do you believe pose the greatest risk? And this is really perceived greatest risk, because folks don't always dive deep into the data to truly understand what some of the risks are. So we have to adjust that. Mitigation ideas. So think about the soft story construction in Menlo Park, the apartment complexes that are just around the corner here that have apartments over the garage, but no steel reinforcement. You have a house that was built pre-1940s. It's going to have a high seismic risk. A house like mine, which was built in 1965, but it has a crawl space, right? Seismic risk. And then what do we do for that? Seismic retrofitting, brace and bolt. We're fortunate that we're not in a wildland urban interface area. However, I've run models that show if we get the right conditions, we could push fire into Sharon Heights. And we've run evacuation simulations of Sharon Heights, and it would take about 4 hours if it's at a period where it's at its highest occupancy, based off of the roads. And we're not a city that has good throughput. I think we all know that. Okay. So then, what are some mitigation ideas that the community can get behind, that developers can look at, that property owners, property managers can look at, and also recognizing that, the city has financial constraints. The grant wells in terms of mitigation projects have dried up. Some of it is coming back through litigation. The BRIC grant, which is $50 million grant that we got to support One Shoreline. There was a recent ruling last month that canceling that program is illegal. So we're hoping that money's going to come back to us, but we just don't know. It's really volatile. So, and again, a lot of these projects for the city are capital improvement projects. And then there's projects like that fall on me for updating our emergency operations plan, improving overall preparedness and response capability of the city. Things like that are in our current mitigation plan, which the new EOP will go to council in June. So excited for that. That's it. Short and sweet. Any questions?
Yeah, so thank you very much. Really interesting presentation. Are there any clarifying questions from the EQC before we take public comment?
So you said at the top that the city must have a plan of this nature in order to qualify for the FEMA public
Assistance grants. Yes.
what does a qualified plan consist of, and what is approval?
Yeah, so I can share the draft with the commission, because you're a commission. But it's a very extensive document that goes through kind of the history of the city, the demographics of the city, capabilities of the city, what's our financial capabilities. And then it goes through and it lays out, right now we have 31 identified mitigation projects, and they have to be basically formatted in FEMA talk because it's their own language. And then we also have an opportunity to add additional mitigation plans. So one of the ones that I'm adding in this year, and this was based off of feedback from Councilmember Schmidt, when I did a staff report in February, that is going to be doing a size and vulnerability analysis. So where I'm going to be identifying all of the homes that are pre-1940 and all the soft story homes. And we're going to be putting that into our GIS system so we can visually map, overlay it, and then add in the hazard data so we can see, for example, who's in the flood zone, who's in liquefaction zone, which I can tell you anything along San Francisco Creek and Bayfront are all in liquefaction, which means the water basically turns into jello, and it's a little bit of a different hit than if you're on bedrock. So those are the types of things that we're looking at. It is a very structured format. There's no wiggle room in terms of how it's formatted. We're told what data we have to provide, and that's what goes in.
Is there any chance of it not being approved because of, I don't know, layoffs in the FEMA?
No. So the first to clarify, FEMA is still functioning. Just there's certain parts of FEMA that are not, like, I can't have the staff do any training because the training's all been frozen. This is a legal requirement under the Stafford Act. And the Stafford Act is where the disaster funds come from. It's a completely different pocket of money than operations. So that is not going to change. The county has hired a consultant that this is all they do is local hazard mitigations plan. They have a software system where we input all the data and then it spits out the formatted plan. So it's a pretty tried and true process. And if it goes to Cal OES and there's something that they kick back, we have the opportunity to make whatever recommendation or correction they have, and the same thing with FEMA. And then once we get through that process, midsummer, then it goes to council to be ratified. And the current mitigation plan is on our website, and I can give that to Rachel to send out.
Question. Rita?
I'm done.
I'm curious about the communication plan to residents who may be identified as being in the liquefaction zone, or was it one soft? Well, it's
Soft story.
Yeah, soft story. So that they know that they're, yeah.
Yeah, so the county is actually leading the public outreach section, so I can come back to you with what that plan is.
And then,
You should already know.
when does the current plan expire?
End of this year.
End of this year.
Yeah.
And it's just one plan that both the state and the federal government approve, or is there a separate plan for the state and a separate plan for the?
No, it's the same plan.
State for-
And if you want to read it, it's like 351 pages.
Any other clarifying questions?
It might be helpful, Brandon, just to clarify the timeline for community engagement.
Yeah, it'll be the month of May. And then once community engagement is done, any feedback, comments, edits will get adjusted in the plan. We'll finalize the plan, then it'll go to Cal OES to review and approve. Once Cal OES approves it, then it goes to FEMA. Once FEMA approves it, then we go to council, ratify it, it's good for 5 years.
And these are the 4 specific questions we're looking for the community to answer.
Correct. And what the county has done is they built an online questionnaire survey that's already open to the public, and we've published that in the digest. And then what they're asking us to do is if there's an opportunity to present, for example, with here presenting to EQC, that will go in as, outreach. Liz spoke to one of our community groups a couple weeks ago. So there's opportunities when we do Love Our Earth this weekend. I'll have information on hazard mitigation, and that's public outreach.
Next week.
But it's not like the 25th. But it's not like a door-to-door campaign.
And then any feedback the commission shares this evening during our discussion related to these questions or more broadly, we can incorporate into the process.
Yeah, and I think it would be great for EQC to take a look at the mitigation projects that we have outlined, because like I said, the like 60% of them are directly related to the work that sustainability is doing.
I have another question.
Yeah.
My parents live in San Jose and they recently received some funding for the brace and bolt. So I'm wondering, will money be available for residents in Menlo Park?
So the Brace and Bolt program is an ongoing program that rotates through zip codes. I'm not exactly sure how that works because I know that I live in the city of Newark. And when I applied for the Brace and Bolt grant, I didn't get it. So I ended up, like it's an investment. The house is our biggest investment, so I'm going to spend the $8,000 to get it done. And I totally recognize that not everybody can be in that situation. But one of the things, so let me talk about the follow-on. One of the things that I'm looking at doing is building out on our webpage a resource page that shows the different mitigation programs that are out there. So Brace and Bolt, there's information on how to retrofit a soft storage structure. So if you haven't done so already, go to menlopark.gov/prepared. I've completely rebuilt our disaster page, and you'll see a section there on hazard mitigation, and you can take a look at the hazard mitigation plan in there as well. But we'll send that out as a part of the minutes. And pay close attention to the graphics because they're pretty cool.
Website is linked in the slide deck as well.
Yeah.
And Ms. Bonner, can you call for public comment, please?
Absolutely. Okay, moving into public comment for item D3, update on local hazard mitigation plan. If you're in the room and you'd like to make public comment, you can take your card at this time. If you are online, you can press the raise hand button. If you're calling in, you can press *9. I don't see any hands online, but I do have a card in the room. So we can start with Brian Schmidt when you're ready.
Thanks again, Brian Schmidt with Menlo Spark. When I was thinking about those bullet points, hazards that you've experienced or think are greatest risk, one that I wanted to bring up was wildfire smoke. So I wasn't sure if that's in the plan, but that could be quite extensive. I had a friend back in 2020 who was thinking of leaving the local area and leaving the state because of his severe asthma and wildfire smoke. So I think that would be important to call out for our community. And that's very relevant to the EQC's work as well. Because if it's hot out, the normal way you deal with heat is you open your windows, but if the wildfire smoke is there, you can't do that. In other words, you need a heat pump, an HVAC system. That's where EQC comes in. So I think that there might be some worthwhile aspects of discussing that. The other thing I would add is that back in 2015, I lived in Santa Clara County. I was working for or advocating for establishing what became Silicon Valley Clean Energy. One of the arguments I made was that could help people set up either microgrids or just be more resilient in terms of being able to stay in their homes and not have to evacuate right away, especially now that we've got batteries. That seems like a combination of solar and storage is something that could be called out as part of the hazard mitigation plan. And finally, that since climate change is a recognized net hazard, then a mitigation that should be called out is reducing Menlo Park's greenhouse gas emissions to help get for that. Thank you. I would say I'd love to hear more about how wildfire smoke plays a role in the hazard mitigation plan. Commission is interested.
I'm happy
Thank
to
you.
speak into that.
Okay, we don't have any other hands online, so we can close public comment on item B3, update on local hazard mitigation plan, and return the
You want me
meeting.
to talk about smoke?
Yeah, so thank you. We'll now open it for a discussion amongst EQC, but if you want to start with your
Yeah.
answer
So-
to that wildfire smoke
So
question.
that's a great comment. The wildfire smoke is a consequence of the hazard, which is fire. And so those are things that we address in our emergency operations plan. And again, in the rebuild of our website, the public information regarding wildfire smoke and what to do in defensible space is all in there. But that's something that's more of our response side of things because they're other than some preventative measures that an individual can take, there's nothing that we can do to mitigate from wildfire smoke. So it's more an education of these are some things that you can do. I feel that very real. My daughter has asthma, very sensitive, and we have sent her out of the state up to their grandparents in Washington. So that resonates with me. The other one's super spot on.
So, you-
Spot on.
oh, yeah.
I just want to say that I'm so glad that you're a part of the city team. It's so great to have someone with such experience. Thinking about these issues and helping make sure we're prepared. So thank you.
Yeah. I will add that if you would hold up the one pager, please. So this is our new one pager. It's English and Spanish on both sides. It's some basic tips on preparedness, and it also has the QR codes to sign up for SMC Alert. So those are over there on the table. I did bring trading cards for Kylo. And you all kind of got to meet him. He's a part of the Menlo Park Urban Search and Rescue team with the fire district. And then lastly, we did a multi-agency tabletop exercise for San Francisco Creek. And my daughter designed a sticker for it. And I brought some stickers for you to take as well. So thanks again for the opportunity. Appreciate you. And look forward to your feedback on the LHMP.
We might have more discussion, so
Oh, yeah, sorry.
it's okay. Anyone? Any other discussion or?
It's a lot to take in. This is a different slice on a couple of topics that we address frequently. Earthquake not being one of them. So, but the outreach and engagement obviously touches on some of the stuff that we're doing.
And it is important too when you're thinking about hazards and risks, thinking about what are the secondary consequences of that. So wildfire creates smoke. Earthquake, okay, you're gonna have the shaking, but then what happens after the earthquake? You lose water, you lose power, you lose sewage infrastructure. Those are all consequences of the earthquake. So it's not just planning for making sure your house doesn't crumble, it's planning for actually being able to, live and sustain and be resilient, and then to be able to recover as a community. And, I mentioned with recovery, that's the most difficult part of any disaster. It's also very complicated from a programming perspective, because do you recover the same? So do you build back the same, or you build back better? Right? You take Malibu as an example. There has been fires sweeping to PCH since Malibu was Malibu. What did we do? We increased, and goes into kind of the urban canopy, right? It's great to have an urban canopy, but you also have to think about ladder fuels. You have to think about palm trees. They like to burn and throw embers. Eucalyptus trees, they like to explode. So as we're thinking about these things and impact to climate change, also thinking about fire resistance, and what is going to make a beautiful canopy help with the environment, but also reduce the risk of fire, right? So it's looking at things from a very different perspective. If I were building the codes, I wouldn't allow a palm tree past Alameda de los Pulgas or a eucalyptus tree, because they're extremely high hazard in fires. But we're California, we live on palm trees. So those are some of the things that, when you're looking at it from a disaster mitigation perspective, looking at it from that lens. Yeah.
I'm thinking about how usually like late spring, early summer, we usually get an update from the urban forestry team.
Mhm.
And it would be great if you could come, or I don't know if you talk behind the scenes about some of those recommendations, because maybe they could incorporate those recommendations when they come back here, and that can go to city council.
Yeah, this can.
That meeting will be in June at BHCC, so we can touch base.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, often the communities that are least prepared to deal with climate change are the first ones hit by the effects of climate change. And then hearing you say that not only is that the case for Bellhaven, but they're on a liquefaction zone is like double whammy for that community. And it was referenced earlier that heat pumps can be part of the solution, but think you mentioned it earlier, but in an earthquake, it can take months for the gas system to get turned back on, but the electrical system can get usually turned on much quicker. So I don't know if there's a way to sort of incorporate that into our community outreach with Bellhaven and promoting electrification as just another benefit to getting back online sooner should an earthquake strike in their vulnerable community.
Yeah, and the other unique thing with Bellhaven is accessibility. So I had a day where I was going to speak in Bellhaven in the evening, and it took me 2 hours from City Hall to get to the substation. Because there was accidents and Willow was backed up. So now if you think, 90,000 cars a day across the bridge, if the bridge is compromised, if Willow's compromised, if Marsh is compromised, getting in and out of Bellhaven is compromised. The saving grace is we have a big giant field behind Bellhaven Community Campus, and that becomes a landing zone. But yeah, that community, and I've talked to the fire district about it. There's some work that the fire district is also doing to improve resiliency, both in the East Palo Alto and Bellhaven community. They have a bow. But yeah, it's the one community that has kind of one of the higher risks in terms of liquefaction and flooding versus Sharon Heights, who's fire. But those are the two risk zones in the city.
Could you define landing zone?
Helicopter landing zone, where a helicopter lands, unload supplies.
I just had a question for Rachel. We at one point thought about having a subcommittee around adaptation, and I think we held off because of this plan not being ready yet, but I may be wrong about that. But nevertheless, if we were to create this adaptation subcommittee, how do you see that fitting into helping create or support the local hazard mitigation plan?
Yeah, so thanks for reminding everyone about that subcommittee. There's a couple of different plans at play here. So there's kind of a systems map of it. We have our local hazard mitigation plan. We also have our regional shoreline adaptation plan. And then we have the commitment to do a climate adaptation plan in our CAP. And so there's a number of different kind of requirements at different levels and different timing. The local hazard mitigation plan is more expansive and more broad. We're probably not going to get all the specific little small block level pieces of feedback into the local hazard mitigation plan. That's where the RSAP comes into play, and One Shoreline is leading that effort with our neighboring cities. We have a grant from Caltrans, and they'll be launching that in the next couple of months. And so I think that one is going to be a much more involved hands-on community outreach process. And so I think timing should align with that planning process. And that will be in July and August. So I think the commission should consider reforming that subcommittee at that point. And Public Works Director Azalea Mitch will make that presentation, or she'll have someone on her team do that.
Just one other sort of random thought is last month we talked about community engagement, and we had learned about this organization called Cool Petaluma, which is an organization that is grassroots but also works with the city. But it's really created around this idea of bringing community members together and being prepared for an emergency. So I don't know, maybe there's some additional work to do there in exploring that concept further and lifting it up somehow, and just helping the entire community be more supportive and helpful in the case of an emergency for each other.
Yeah, so that is an element of the program. I have been working with NPC Ready and CRC and Bellhaven Action. We did several bilingual sessions last year and gave out supplies and starter kits. I'll be very transparent. There's a reluctance to do any of these courses right now, given the current political climate.
What kind of courses?
These prepared. Which is it's a state model. But when I reached out to my partners about doing them at request of Eduardo, they're like, no, we don't want to put that community at risk on advertising a government sponsored focused preparedness effort. So that's where we're focusing on our literature and having things bilingual. So there's that piece, but we are working with community-based organizations in terms of like the neighborhood response level preparedness. And then we have a meeting coming up that is with the entire county emergency management organization and all of the major community-based organizations that are involved in disaster preparedness and readiness to basically go through an exercise of how we communicate and activate and leverage all the community-based organizations in an incident. And there's several. So though that type of work is being done. I know CRC has done some door-to-door stuff in Bellhaven, has sponsored battery powers for houses. So there is grassroots level. Is it enough? No. Are we truly a resilient community at this point? Probably not. But I've only been here 2 years. Give me another year. Strike that from the minutes.
Yes,
I had another question. It sounds like you're doing a lot of work with the folks in Bellhaven, which is great. And Brian, I'm thinking about you and the various community organizations in Sharon Heights. So I was curious if you've connected in with those organizations, and maybe Brian, you could say a little bit more about it, if relevant.
Yeah, we have a couple different ways to communicate with Sharon Heights. We have a Sharon Heights community website that has email list and a portal. We also have a WhatsApp series of community channels. So there's a primary channel and there's channels for various topics like home security. We could easily create one for environmental issues. I don't know, are there any other districts or communities are doing something similar, but we are trying to get more engagement with our community through digital channels.
Just in case that's useful to you. Yeah.
And the other piece of the program that there's 2 other pillars that I haven't kicked off yet because I don't have a bandwidth because I am a party of one. Is faith-based organizations and private sector. So I've got that the private sector partnership is an absolutely huge element to it, as well as faith-based organizations. So we will get there.
well, thank you. Anything else? You and Kylo are always welcome to come to our meetings.
I appreciate it. He had to
If you
come.
want to just send Kylo.
Yeah, good luck. No, my kids are in Pride and Prejudice at Palo Alto High School, and they're in final week of rehearsals, so they're there till 10, and my wife's the choreographer, so I didn't want to leave them alone.
We're glad you brought them.
Cool,
Letting people.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
Okay, we will move on to item D, reports and announcements. You can add-
Sorry, that should be item.
E. Yes. E. So yes, item F, reports and announcements. You can now hear reports and announcements from staff and commissioners.
Yay.
So first,
Sure. And then Liz, if you're there, you could follow me. I wanted to share about our next community feedback forum that Peninsula Clean Energy is hosting on May 4th at County Center in Redwood City. It's going to be, I think, really interesting for this group, focused on climate action and progress across the county. They're also going to have a hour-long celebration reception for all of our advocates and commissioners and council members and staff in honor of their 10-year anniversary. So I think this is one not to be missed. If you can make it, you can also attend on Zoom, and they'll have the program in English with interpretation in Spanish available. So I wanted to highlight that, and I have flyers that could take a picture of. There's a QR code.
since it's May the 4th, I heard there might be a Star Wars.
Oh, may the 4th be with you then. And then I wanted to highlight another community event on May 16th, the Housing and Neighborhood Resource Fair from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Bellhaven Community Campus. I am looking for someone to join me at my table, at the sustainability table, so it could be sustainability slash EQC table, to talk about home upgrade and other, climate action programs.
What date is, Rachel?
May 16th from
Yeah,
one.
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I was hoping. Raise your hand. Okay. And then I did want to share that all of our solar systems have been fully installed and we have received the favorable NEM rate. The deadline was today and we submitted our paperwork to PG&E yesterday for the final system and they approved it. So woohoo.
Wow.
Got it in under the deadline.
We did. And over the course of the 20-year PPA agreement, we're anticipated to save the city $2 million in utility bill savings. And then from that 21 to 25 years, if the city opts to purchase the systems, there's up to another $2 million in savings. I'll get more accurate numbers from PCE once we have some operational data and we can report back out on that. And we'll be celebrating the systems on June 1st at the library. It's a Monday from noon to 5. We'll have kind of a pop-up event, fun in the sun with PCE and library staff. So I'll send more information as that gets closer. And then, Liz, if you're able to unmute, I pass it to you. Oh, we're not able to hear you. Still not.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Alrighty. So let's see. Excited to announce that the Love Our Earth Festival is next Saturday, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, April 25th. We've been working really hard on it, so excited to have everyone come out. It'll be held at Cesar Chavez Ravenswood Middle School from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. We'll be featuring over 40 exhibitors, family-friendly activities, an EV Expo, plant-based food market, and this year we added for the first 100 registered attendees, they'll receive a $10 food token to enjoy the plant-based market. So that's an exciting addition. So yeah, come on out. And then also we'll be launching our EV and e-bike voucher program in mid-May. It'll be administered by Actera, our partner. So it'll be similar to the zero emission landscaping equipment voucher. And yeah, another thing we're excited about. So keep a lookout for that in the digest and other outreach that we're looking forward to.
Liz, just adding the token came as direct feedback. Commissioner Hernandez about the food being a little higher end. So hopefully that helps. But we all see how it works and hopefully we can continue.
Thank you for all your hard work on the Love Our Earth Festival.
Yeah, it's a project of many of us in this room. Many thanks to Menlo Spark too, who's been joining weekly on our planning commission. Shouldn't say planning commission, it's really planning group. I don't know. Committee, thank you.
Any other reports or announcements?
Well, so I saw that like in the Kelly Park, they are done with the solar panels. They haven't opened the gate yet, as I went there on Monday, so I'm not sure if it's been today. But I saw like 5 EV chargers, 3 on one side, 2 on the other side. So it was actually yeah, and it covered the whole parking lot on the back of the building. Yeah, they put an area where there's a tree. You have to go around a tree.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. The chargers are online now, but I'm not sure if the fence is moved, but they're.
Yeah, well, it was locked on Monday, so I don't know about today.
Cool.
You want to mention the arbor tree?
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. We are doing the mayor's tree planting on Thursday at Hamilton Park from 4 to 5:30, 6 p.m. The scouts will be leading that with Canopy, and city arborist Jillian Keller has an awesome program. So come out and help Mayor Nash plant some trees, as well as our chair and vice chair will be there.
Okay. That will be good for that, and then we'll move on to. Oh, yeah, did we?
on that item?
You can, I don't think we.
We don't normally do public comment, but if you want to allow it, sure.
There's not, yeah, I'm fine with it, yeah.
Yeah.
Comment away.
Okay.
We will take public comment on reports and announcements. If you'd like to make public comment and if you're in the room, you can hand me a public comment card. If you're online, you can press the raise hand button. If you're calling in, you press *9 for public comment on item E, reports and announcements. We'll start in the room with our public comment card. Brian Schmidt, whenever you're ready.
Thanks again, Brian Schmidt, Menlo Spark. Two brief comments. Also very much looking forward to Love Our Earth Festival. Jocelyn on Menlo Spark's team has been doing a lot of work on that. So, and my sister and brother-in-law are going to be in town visiting, so I'm hoping they will come to the festival as well. The other thing I wanted to mention was I wanted to gently disagree with something Ori said about the solar panel program that Menlo Park has. He was asked about the climate emissions saved from the program. He said there wasn't a lot to say for that because the electricity the city otherwise would have gotten from PCE is very clean. And that is true. However, that means that PCE is buying less electricity out on the world, and that electricity, which would have been very clean, that would have been sold to PCE, is going to get sold to someone else. It's going to displace more expensive electricity, which would have been fossil fuel. So I think it actually does save emissions. So it's just one more reason why it's a great program that other parties do. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Now we'll move on to, oh, okay, right.
No additional comment cards in the room or hands online.
Okay, we'll move on to item F, informational items. Our next item is informational items. Informational items are transmitted to the EQC and staff's efforts to provide updates. Informational items are not action items. However, city council, staff, or members of the public may ask questions or make comment. Are there questions or comments from EQC on informational item F1, 2025-2026 Environmental Quality Commission Work Plan? Seeing none, Ms. Launder, do we have any public comment on this item?
Sure, opening up public comment for our informational item F1. If you are in the room and you would like to make public comment, you can return a speaker card to me. If you're online, you can press the raise hand button. If you're calling in, you press *9. No cards in the room or hands online, so we can close public comment on our informational items.
With that, we are adjourned. Thank you.